When we look at massive corporate projects, I think it's really tempting to think of them purely in terms of, engineering or mathematics.
Right, yeah, like calculating loads or hitting target margins.
Exactly, optimizing supply chains, things like that. But underneath all that hard data, the actual operating system running any major company is, well, it's language.
And specifically, it's a heavily codified set of terms. They function almost like programming code for human behavior.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are cracking open a highly specific business presentation deck titled TD0025 Technical Discussions.
It's a fascinating document.
It really is. And our mission today isn't just a vocabulary lesson. We're deconstructing 5 incredibly common corporate phrases. We know you already hear these words every day, but we want to expose the hidden mechanics behind them.
Yeah, exactly how they secretly structure the workflow, from the very initial planning stages all the way to handling, unforeseen technical roadblocks.
So the document kicks things off with the game plan. Specifically, it uses an example of a strategy to expand market share in the renewable energy sector.
Right, and management uses this term constantly. But let's look at the psychology there. Like, why use a sports metaphor instead of just calling it a strategy?
Well, I mean, strategy sounds so abstract, right? It's kind of philosophical. A game plan implies something really tactical and sequential.
Yes, exactly. It creates this expectation of immediate, coordinated action. You don't just ponder a game plan.
Right, you execute it.
Well-
I like to compare a game plan to a culinary recipe. Without it, your brilliant ideas are just raw ingredients making a giant mess in the kitchen.
That's a great way to put it. It strips away all the ambiguity. But, a sequential plan is entirely useless once you hit the reality of corporate silos.
Oh, for sure.
When different departments are forced to execute that plan, their competing incentives immediately clash. And that friction is exactly why the deck introduces the mechanism of synergy.
Now, synergy, I mean, that is the ultimate eye-roll buzzword.
It really is.
But look at how the deck actually applies it. It talks about forcing R&D and manufacturing teams to reduce lead times together, which is wild because R&D naturally wants, infinite time to experiment.
Exactly. While manufacturing just wants rigid, repeatable speed.
Right. So synergy in practice isn't just about friendly collaboration or team building.
No, not at all. It is a structural mechanism for aligning those conflicting incentives. It's leadership basically forcing two departments to share a metric, so their competing goals have to overlap. 1 + 1 has to equal more than 2.
But here's the fatal flaw in that, right? When you have high synergy and multiple teams collaborating, you get this psychological diffusion of responsibility.
Oh, the bystander effect.
Exactly. Everyone assumes someone else is handling the bottlenecks. Which brings us to the exact antidote the deck prescribes for that, the demand to take ownership.
Right, and the source specifically mandates this for the quality control process.
Okay, but wait, let me push back on this a little bit, because taking ownership always sounds to me like management's clever way of, outsourcing liability.
How do you mean?
Well, you tell a mid-level engineer to take ownership of quality control. Isn't that just a convenient way to ensure there's a specific neck to wring if a product ships with a defect?
I mean, it absolutely concentrates risk on the individual, but look at how it changes the actual workflow.
Okay, how so?
When you merely assign a responsibility, the employee is only accountable for the process. If they follow the QA checklist and the product still fails, they can just say, hey, I did my job.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, by demanding ownership, leadership is destroying the checklist defense. They are demanding accountability for the final outcome, regardless of what the manual actually says.
Sure, but if I'm that engineer, taking on that kind of ultimate liability it's terrifying. If the gear tech fails, I'm the one who gets fired.
But that terror is a feature, not a bug. Because that intense concentration of risk is often the only pressure cooker hot enough to produce what the deck calls groundbreaking innovations.
Right, like the source's example of the new lubrication technology for high-speed gears. It's not just an incremental update.
Right. No, groundbreaking literally means destroying the foundation of what was there before. You aren't optimizing the legacy system. You are invalidating the previous physics of the machine entirely.
But when you invalidate the old system, you introduce entirely unpredictable friction. The deck actually points out a severe noise issue with that new gear tech.
Yeah, they had a huge problem there.
And you can't use legacy troubleshooting on groundbreaking tech, which forces the final phrase think outside the box.
Right. In this specific case, the engineers stopped trying to add soundproofing to the gears and instead redesigned the entire housing structure.
Oh, wow. It's like discovering the front door is locked, and instead of trying to pick the lock, you just, climb through the window. You change the actual boundaries of the problem.
Exactly. So look at the hidden architecture we've uncovered here.
Oh,
Use a game plan to dictate sequence.
right.
Deploy synergy to force conflicting departments to share metrics. Demand ownership to eliminate the checklist defense. Push for groundbreaking destruction of legacy systems. And then use outside-the-box thinking to reframe the boundaries when those new systems inevitably break.
It's essentially a complete behavioral programming language, but, it leaves you with a really fascinating paradox to consider as we wrap up today.
What's that?
Well, if thinking outside the box genuinely becomes a company's standard operating procedure, doesn't that outside space eventually just harden into a brand new box?
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep finding fresh perspectives once your unconventional, groundbreaking ideas just become the new corporate baseline?